Hello, everyone. I'm your storyteller. I will read a story that maybe one of you has experienced, and I am here to help you today. I know you're using this video to help you sleep. So before we begin, like this video and subscribe to the channel. Tell me in the comments where you're from and what time you're watching. Lay back comfortably, relax, and let's begin. Story 1. Emily Parker sat at the small wooden table in her Brooklyn apartment. Her phone vibrated slightly, lighting up with a notification from a dating app she had just downloaded. You have a new match. She took a deep breath, staring at the screen before sliding it open. Daniel Evans, 30, architect, dark brown hair, deep blue eyes, and a warm, inviting smile. Emily had never been serious about dating apps. She had just come out of a 5-year relationship, and even though her best friend Jenna had encouraged her to get back out there, she wasn't sure she was ready. But something about Daniel felt different. Hesitating for a moment, she typed the first message. Hey, nice to match with you. Within seconds, a reply came through. Hey, Emily, I was hoping you'd text first. The conversation flowed effortlessly. Daniel spoke about his job, how he had just finished a major project in Manhattan, and how much he loved art. Emily felt comfortable, as if she had known him for years, but something was odd. Whenever Emily suggested a video call or an in-person meeting, Daniel always had an excuse. I'm stuck at work. Sorry, feeling sick, maybe next time. I prefer texting, honestly. Even though a small part of her felt suspicious, Emily couldn't shake the connection she felt with him. Then finally, Daniel asked her out. Want to meet at Cafe Verona tomorrow at 7 p.m.? Emily smiled. Of course, see you there. She had no idea that meeting would change her life forever. The next evening, Emily put on her favorite dress and arrived at Cafe Verona 5 minutes early. The small cafe was warm and inviting. Candlelit tables flickered in the dim light, and the rich aroma of coffee filled the air. She chose a corner seat, waiting excitedly. The clock ticked. 7:05 p.m. No sign of Daniel. 7:15 p.m. She started to feel uneasy. 7:30 p.m. She sent a message. Hey, are you on your way? No response. A waiter approached and asked if she wanted to order. She requested a cup of chamomile tea, her eyes still glued to her phone. 7:45 p.m. She tried calling. Straight to voicemail. Just as she was about to take a sip of her tea, a notification popped up. A message from Daniel. I was there, but you didn't see me. Emily's heart stopped. Her eyes darted across the cafe. No one matched his description. With shaking fingers, she typed, Daniel, where are you? I don't see you. No reply. She stood up, walking toward the front desk. Excuse me, was there a reservation under the name Daniel Evans? The waiter looked confused. No, ma'am. We don't have that name on our list. A cold chill ran down Emily's spine. Back home, Emily couldn't sleep. Her mind raced. How could someone say they were there when no one saw them? At 2 a.m., she decided to do some digging. She opened Daniel's Instagram. His last post was from 3 years ago. Her heartbeat quickened. Desperate for answers, she typed Daniel Evans into Google, and then she saw it. A news article from 2019. A man named Daniel Evans, a promising young architect, was found dead in a tragic car accident in Brooklyn 3 years ago. His car was discovered overturned beneath the Williamsburg Bridge. Police ruled it as an accident. Emily froze. Her hands trembled as she reread the article. This wasn't possible. Daniel was dead. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe there were two Daniel Evans? Emily hesitantly sent another message. Daniel, I found something about you. I need answers. 5 minutes passed, no reply. Then at 3 a.m., her phone vibrated. A new message. Come to the city park tomorrow night. I will explain everything. The park was eerily silent that night. A cold wind blew, sending chills down Emily's spine. At 11:58 p.m., she stood beneath a flickering street lamp, her heart pounding. Then, at exactly midnight, she saw him, Daniel, standing under an old oak tree, wearing the same leather jacket from his profile pictures. Handsome, yet wrong. His eyes weren't completely alive. Emily swallowed hard and stepped forward. Daniel? He smiled faintly. His voice was soft, almost a whisper. You finally came. Emily felt her breath hitch. I need to know the truth, she whispered. Daniel nodded. I shouldn't be here. Emily's pulse raced. I know you're dead, Daniel. I read the news. His eyes darkened. I had an accident, but I never left. Something is keeping me here. What is keeping you? She asked. Daniel hesitated. I don't know, but I feel like something was left unfinished. Emily took a deep breath. Then let's find out. That night, Emily dug deeper. She found the police accident report, and what she discovered was terrifying. Daniel's death wasn't an accident. Someone had cut his brake lines. Murder. She sent Daniel a message. I know what happened to you. We need to meet. A reply came instantly. Meet me at the Williamsburg Bridge. Tonight. At 2 a.m., Emily stood beneath the bridge. Daniel appeared. His face looked tired. Tell me, he said softly. Emily swallowed hard. You didn't crash by accident. Someone killed you. Daniel closed his eyes, and then, footsteps. A man stepped out of the shadows, Daniel's father. The truth finally surfaced, and that night, Daniel was finally set free. Weeks later, Emily sat in her apartment staring at the night sky. Her phone vibrated. A notification from the dating app. You have a new match. Her heart pounded as she read the name, Daniel Evans. She hesitated, opened his profile, and saw just one message. Don't forget me. Story 2. Maggie Turner sat on her couch, wrapped in a blanket, scrolling mindlessly through Endless Love, a dating app she had downloaded a few weeks ago. Her last relationship had ended badly. Daniel, her ex-fiancé, had betrayed her trust, leaving her broken and unwilling to date for over a year. But tonight, she felt different. Maybe it was loneliness. Maybe it was curiosity. Either way, she tapped her screen, swiping through countless profiles. Then, a new match. Her heart skipped a beat. Ethan Carter, 30, photographer. His pictures were stunning. Landscapes, abandoned buildings, eerie forests at night. But the one that caught Maggie's attention the most was a self-portrait. Dark hair, piercing green eyes, and a half smile that made her stomach flutter. Before she could even type a message, a notification popped up. Ethan, I was hoping you'd swipe right. Maggie smiled. Something about him felt familiar, almost as if she had met him before. The conversation flowed effortlessly. Ethan was charming, funny, and passionate about his work. He told her about his favorite places to shoot, his love for old architecture, and how he often explored abandoned places at night just to capture their forgotten beauty. That sounds terrifying, Maggie had typed, half joking. Not if you know what to look for, Ethan replied. Something about his words sent a shiver down her spine. Despite the growing connection, Ethan avoided video calls and always declined to meet up in person. I prefer to take things slow, he said. Then one evening, out of nowhere, Ethan finally asked, would you like to meet? There's an old museum downtown. Midnight, just us. Maggie hesitated. Midnight? But something about Ethan made her say yes. She had no idea that this date would change everything. Maggie arrived at the Holloway Museum at exactly 11:55 p.m. The building was massive, Victorian architecture with towering columns and intricate carvings. It looked abandoned, the kind of place that shouldn't be open this late. But the doors were unlocked. Maggie stepped inside. The air was cold, too cold. The museum was dimly lit, the exhibits covered in shadows. Her phone vibrated. Ethan. I'm here. Maggie looked around. Nothing. She took a hesitant step forward. Ethan, she whispered. A voice, low, barely audible, echoed from the darkened hallways. I'm here. Maggie's breath hitched. The sound came from everywhere and nowhere at once. Suddenly footsteps. She turned. A museum guard stood a few feet away, staring at her with narrowed eyes. Miss, what are you doing here? Maggie held up her phone. I'm meeting someone. Ethan Carter. The guard's face drained of color. He took a step back, shaking his head. That's not possible. Maggie frowned. What do you mean? The guard swallowed hard. Because Ethan Carter died 2 years ago. Maggie sat in her apartment staring at her laptop screen. She typed, Ethan Carter, photographer, London. Seconds later, an old news article appeared. Tragic fire takes life of local photographer, Ethan Carter, 2021. Maggie felt her blood turn to ice. The article detailed a mysterious fire that had burned down Ethan's apartment, but the most disturbing part? His body was never found. She checked her phone. Ethan's messages were still there. I'm here. Her hands trembled. Who was she talking to? That night, Maggie had a dream. She was standing in Ethan's apartment before the fire. Ethan was there, looking at her with sorrow in his eyes. I don't belong here, Maggie, he whispered. She reached for him and woke up gasping for air. The air in her room was cold. Her phone vibrated. A message from Ethan. You saw it, didn't you? Tears filled Maggie's eyes. What happened to you? She typed. There was a long pause, then finally his response. I was murdered. Maggie dug deeper. She found security footage from the night of the fire. A shadowy figure was seen leaving Ethan's apartment just minutes before the flames erupted. When she enhanced the image, her stomach dropped. She knew that face. Daniel, her ex-fiancé. Maggie confronted Daniel. At first he denied everything, but when she showed him the footage, his face went pale. He was going to tell you about me, Daniel whispered. Maggie took a shaky step back. You killed him? Daniel's lips curled into a smile. He was already dead the moment he met you. A gust of wind slammed the windows open. The lights flickered, and then Ethan appeared. His presence was stronger than ever. Daniel let out a choked gasp. Number, this isn't possible. A shadow engulfed him, and then he was gone. Maggie collapsed to the floor, tears streaming down her face. Ethan knelt beside her. It's over now. She reached for him, but he was already fading. I'll always be with you. And then he disappeared into the light. Days later, Maggie sat alone in her apartment, scrolling through her phone. A notification popped up. You have a new match. Her heart pounded as she read the name, Ethan Carter. She hesitated, opened his profile, and saw just one message. I will always be with you. Story 3. Oliver Grant sat in his dimly lit apartment in Chicago, staring at his phone screen. His friends had convinced him to download Heartstring, a popular dating app, hoping it would help him move on from his last failed relationship. He sighed, swiping mindlessly through countless profiles. Then, a new match. His heart skipped a beat. Sophie Lane, 27, freelance writer. She was beautiful, dark hair, piercing blue eyes, and a captivating smile. And before he could even send a message, a notification popped up. Sophie, I was hoping you'd swipe right. Oliver smiled. Something about her felt perfect. Their conversation flowed naturally. Sophie was witty, intelligent, and mysterious. She told him about her love for horror novels, old diners, and her obsession with the paranormal. I don't really use social media, she admitted. I prefer real conversations. Oliver liked that. After a few days of chatting, Sophie sent another message. I feel like we get along really well. Let's meet in person. She suggested a small 24-hour diner downtown, tomorrow at midnight. Midnight? That was an odd time, but Oliver was intrigued. Sounds perfect. See you then. He had no idea this would be the worst decision of his life. Oliver arrived at Lenny's diner at exactly 11:55 p.m. The place was nearly empty, except for a few late-night customers. The neon sign outside flickered, buzzing in the silence. He chose a booth by the window and waited. The minutes ticked by. 12:10 a.m. No Sophie. He checked his phone. No messages. A waiter approached. You waiting for someone? Oliver nodded. Yeah, a woman named Sophie. The waiter's face twisted in confusion. Are you sure? Yeah, we plan to meet here. The waiter hesitated, then muttered. That's strange. Before Oliver could ask what he meant, an older man at the counter turned to him. The man's eyes were dark and filled with unease. Son, he said slowly, you need to leave. Oliver frowned. Excuse me? The man stared at him intensely. If she told you to meet her here, you need to walk away, now. A cold chill ran down Oliver's spine. Why? What's going on? The man hesitated, then finally whispered, because Sophie Lane has been dead for 5 years. Oliver felt his blood turn to ice. That's impossible, he muttered. The old man shook his head. You're not the first man to come here looking for her. Oliver's stomach twisted. What do you mean? The man sighed. Every year, at least one guy shows up claiming he matched with Sophie Lane, and every single one of them disappears. Oliver tried to laugh it off. This has to be a joke, right? The man didn't smile. Google her name. See for yourself. Oliver's hands trembled as he typed, Sophie Lane, Chicago. A news article appeared. Local woman. Sophie Lane found dead in abandoned house, 2018. The article detailed how Sophie's body was discovered in a decayed mansion on the outskirts of town. Her cause of death? Unknown. Oliver's heart pounded. He checked his phone. A new message from Sophie. Why did you stop looking for me? Oliver's hands shook as he tried to delete the app, but it wouldn't close. His phone screen flickered. More messages came in. Come outside. I'm waiting. Don't make me come in. His apartment light flickered violently. A shadow moved near his window. A cold voice whispered behind him. You swiped right. Now you're mine. Desperate, Oliver contacted a paranormal investigator, Dr. Malcolm Reed. Dr. Reed listened intently, his face grim. "I've heard of this before," he said. "Sophie Lane was a real woman, but whatever you're talking to isn't her." Oliver's stomach churned. "Then what is it?" Dr. Reed hesitated. "You have to break the connection before she takes you." Oliver rushed home, determined to delete the app, but his phone wouldn't turn off. A message flashed across the screen. 7 days. His breath caught in his throat, then another message. "You swiped right. You belong to me now." Oliver threw his phone against the wall. The screen cracked, but the app remained open. A faint knocking echoed from his front door. It was 3 a.m. Heart pounding, he slowly approached. Another knock. Bang! The door burst open, and standing there, bathed in darkness, was Sophie. Her eyes were black, her mouth twisted into a grin. "I told you. You can't escape." The lights exploded. The room turned black. And then, silence. A week later, a new user logged into Heartstrain. A new match appeared. Oliver Grant, 29th. An analyst from Chicago. A woman smiled at her screen and swiped right. "You have a new match." Oliver: "I was hoping you'd swipe right.